Imagine it's 5:45 in the morning. Your alarm hasn't even gone off yet.
Oh, the absolute worst time to be awake.
Right. The room is completely dark. But then your phone lights up on the nightstand. It vibrates.
And you just know it's not good news.
Exactly. You grab it, you're like squinting at the screen, and you see a text message from your scheduled morning caregiver. And it just says, sorry, can't make it today.
Unbelievable. No warning at all.
No explanation, nothing. And your 6:00 a.m. shift starts in exactly 15 minutes. I mean, before your feet have even hit the floor, your entire day has just devolved into this massive, frantic emergency.
Yeah, and the crazy part is that is the reality happening behind closed doors, like every single day across the entire post-acute care sector. It's just pure survival mode before the sun even comes up.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive. We are really pulling back the curtain on the hidden, kind of chaotic reality of running senior care and post-acute facilities today.
Which is something I think everyone needs to hear about.
For sure. I mean, if you've ever had to place a parent or a loved one in one of these places, you walk into the lobby, you hear the soft instrumental music, you smell the fresh coffee, and you just assume
that it's all running perfectly.
Right. You assume there's this massive, well-oiled machine running smoothly behind the scenes.
But you're really just seeing the illusion of peace. You don't see the administrator in the back office fighting a 5-alarm fire just to keep the building open.
And today, we are looking straight into that fire. Our mission for this deep dive is to understand the crushing systemic problems that are basically paralyzing these facility operators.
Yeah, and we have some really eye-opening source material today.
We do. We're drawing from the Facility Hackers Manifesto and the Facility Hacker Starter Kit. These were put together by Francis San Diego.
Right, the digital marketer from California.
Yeah, exactly. And he got this totally unfiltered front row seat to this industry-wide distress through his wife, Christina. She operates a caregiving agency called Infinity and Beyond Home Care.
And what's really invaluable about his perspective here is that he isn't blinded by industry norms. He watched dozens of facility operators. And we're talking across the whole spectrum here.
Like ALFs, SNFs?
Yeah, assisted living facilities, skilled nursing facilities, RCFEs, home health agencies. He watched all of them just drowning in operational chaos and basically asked, why on earth is it being done this way?
So let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because we need to state the problems really clearly right up front. These operators are under siege right now.
Completely.
They are battling reactive compliance burdens. They're dealing with those 5 a.m. staffing panics we just talked about, and bloated legacy software that doesn't actually work for them.
Not to mention anxious and angry families, which is a huge stressor.
Oh, absolutely. And then these massive invisible revenue leaks that just bleed their margins dry.
If you connect this to the bigger picture for a second, the vulnerability of this industry is staggering. I mean, we entrust these facilities with the most fragile members of our society, but the people running them are fighting these modern, high-stakes healthcare battles armed with, 3-ring paper binders and fax machines.
And dry erase whiteboards.
Yes. The tools simply do not match the gravity of the work they're doing.
Let's start with the first massive weight that's crushing them, which is the regulatory squeeze. The sheer volume of compliance paperwork is just mind-boggling.
It really is.
Francis points out in the manifesto that a small operator, like someone running a 6-bed residential care home out of a quiet suburban neighborhood, they're saddled with essentially the same level of compliance documentation as a massive corporate hospital.
Which is insane when you think about the difference in resources. The mechanism of that compliance is relentless. We're talking daily medication administration records, incident narratives, dietary logs.
Care plan updates, fire drill documentation.
Yes. Yeah, heavy cut protocols. And the fundamental mistake that most operators make, like the trap they constantly fall into, is managing all of this reactively.
Yes. The sources talk about this. They treat a state DSS inspection or a federal CMS audit like a college final exam.
That's a perfect way to put it.
It's like they wait until the week before the surveyor's supposed to show up, or maybe they hear a rumor that a surprise inspection is happening in their county, and suddenly, boom, it's an all-hands-on-deck panic.
Everyone's scrambling.
Right. They're pulling all-nighters, flipping through hundreds of pages in these massive physical binders, frantically trying to find, missing signatures from a Tuesday shift 3 months ago.
And trying to remember who administered a Tylenol to a resident 90 days after the fact. That's not just stressful, it's a recipe for catastrophic failure.
But here is where the final exam analogy gets terrifying, honestly, because if you fail a college final, you just retake the class.
Right. Maybe your GPA drops.
Exactly. But if you fail a CMS or DSS audit because your paper binders have too many holes in them, your business gets shut down.
Which is devastating.
Your staff loses their livelihood, and highly vulnerable elderly people lose their homes.
Which is exactly why relying on a reactive posture in an era of, advanced data processing is such a massive liability. What's fascinating here is the operational distinction between the facilities that are drowning and the ones that consistently thrive.
So what are the successful ones doing differently?
Well, they don't cram. They build systems that treat compliance as a continuous 365-day-a-year process.
So it has to be integrated into the actual daily workflow.
Exactly. If you are logging vital signs in real time and documenting an incident the exact minute it happens, then a state surveyor walking through the front door isn't a crisis.
It's just a Tuesday.
Right. Just a normal Tuesday.
Oh.
But, and this is a big but, that brings up the brutal reality of the floor. It is incredibly easy to sit here and say, just stay proactive on your compliance paperwork.
Right, sounds great in theory.
But how do you actually do that when the caregiver who is supposed to be logging those vital signs just sent you that 5:45 a.m. text message saying they aren't coming in?
Yeah. That causal link is everything. You cannot maintain perfect proactive compliance if you literally lack the human bodies required to run the building.
Exactly. Which plunges us right back into that 5 a.m. staffing crisis.
Let's look at that 5:45 a.m. scenario again. You're the administrator. You're short-staffed. But the residents still need to be transferred out of bed, right?
They still need their morning medications. They need breakfast.
The physical needs of the facility do not pause for a scheduling conflict. So what is the actual mechanism for surviving that 15-minute window before the shift starts?
This is where the source material gets highly tactical. The facility hacker approach outlines a really specific 6-step emergency protocol designed to secure coverage without just descending into total chaos.
Walk me through it, because I imagine most operators just start panic dialing everyone in their phone.
Oh yeah, panic dialing is definitely the default, and it wastes precious time. Step 1 is executing a targeted simultaneous text blast to your backup list.
Okay, a text blast.
But the key here is preparation. You don't just text your entire staff. You build a Tier 1 list of 3 to 5 reliable on-call caregivers who have pre-agreed to be backups.
Got it.
And you text them all at the exact same moment. Whoever replies first gets the shift.
That's smart. That creates like a race condition. It leverages urgency.
Precisely. It cuts down the waiting time.
Yeah.
But you don't just sit around waiting for them to reply. Step 2, and this happens within the first 5 minutes, you call your primary staffing agency.
Okay, call them.
Yes, you do not text them. You use speed dial, you give them the shift details, and you demand an ETA.
Wait, why the hard distinction between calling and texting the agency? Doesn't a text leave a better paper trail for compliance later?
Well, a text does leave a trail, sure. But it allows the agency to passively queue your request. They could ignore a text for 20 minutes.
Oh, I see.
A phone call forces immediate active triage on their end. You basically make your emergency their emergency.
That makes total sense.
But again, you don't stop there. Step 3 is parallel outreach. While you are still on hold with the primary agency, you immediately alert your backup agency.
Wow, okay.
You cast the widest possible net instantly, rather than waiting for Plan A to fail before you initiate Plan B.
You're layering your fallbacks. I love that. So what's step 4?
Step 4 is internal communication. You have to notify the director of nursing or the leadership team immediately.
Right, you can't let them walk into an unstaffed building completely blind at 8 a.m.
Exactly. And then we hit step 5, which honestly is often the hardest part, extending the current shift.
Okay, how does that work?
You approach the night shift caregiver who is currently on the floor, the one who's probably totally exhausted and ready to go home, and you ask them to stay for an additional 2 to 4 hours on overtime.
Okay, I have to push back on this one. These caregivers work incredibly demanding, physically grueling shifts.
They really do.
So is keeping an exhausted caregiver on the floor actually safe? Doesn't that drastically increase the risk of, like, medication error or a resident fall?
It's a completely valid concern. I mean, burnout is a massive issue in this industry. But you have to look at the legal and moral reality the operator faces in that exact moment.
Which is what?
A brief 2-hour overlap with a tired caregiver is infinitely safer and legally far more defensible than a completely unstaffed gap where vulnerable residents are left entirely unattended.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess that's true.
An unattended fall is a catastrophic, potentially fatal event.
Mhm.
So yes, keeping them on the clock is a bad option, but it is the safest bad option available to bridge that gap.
It's triage. You are literally choosing the lesser of two evils to protect the residents.
Exactly. And that ties directly into the final crucial action, which is step 6, document everything.
Right, back to the paperwork.
Every single text sent, every call made, every minute the night caregiver stayed over.
I can just hear an operator now saying, look, I'm trying to serve breakfast to 12 people by myself right now. I do not have time to log my phone calls.
And totally feels like useless administrative bloat in the moment. I get it. But consider the mechanism of a state audit.
Okay.
If a CMS surveyor reviews your records 3 months later and sees that your staffing ratio dropped below the legal mandate for 2 hours on a Tuesday.
Or they note that an exhausted caregiver was working a 14-hour shift.
Exactly. They will penalize you. Unless you have that log, that document proves you didn't just ignore a vacant shift. It proves you triggered an emergency protocol, contacted 2 agencies, and secured safe overlap coverage.
That's a huge distinction.
It transforms a potential fine, or even a facility closure, into a documented example of competent crisis management.
See, here's where it gets really interesting to me. We're talking about frantic group texts, speed dialing temp agencies, and manually logging phone calls.
Yeah.
It is 2026. If you look at logistics or delivery or hospitality, scheduling is highly automated and seamless. Why on earth is a multi-million-dollar healthcare operation running on iMessage and Hope?
That is what the sources call the tech trap. And it is the core frustration Francis identifies in the industry. For a very long time, Silicon Valley and the broader tech sector just completely ignored senior care.
Really? Just ignored it.
Yeah. There was no innovation tailored to the realities of a 40-bed assisted living facility or a small regional rehab center.
So when software finally did arrive for them, what did they actually get? Because the sources mention legacy systems like point-click care and matrix care.
Right. They got software built for massive hospital networks, systems that were designed for thousands of beds, endless administrative layers, and, dedicated full-time IT departments.
The analogy Francis uses in the manifesto is brilliant here. He says it's like a facility operator needs a vehicle just to commute to the local grocery store, and the software industry says, great, here are the keys to a Boeing 747.
It's a spectacular mismatch of scale.
Right. If you run a 20-bed facility, you do not need a Boeing 747. I mean, the onboarding process for these legacy systems takes 6 months.
Oh, easily.
You have to send a high-turnover caregiving staff to multi-day training seminars just to learn how to log a resident's blood pressure.
And look at the mechanism of failure on the floor when that happens. When a software system requires 20 different clicks through 5 different submenus just to document that Mrs. Smith ate 80% of her lunch, what does the tired caregiver actually do?
They abandon the software.
Exactly. They grab a sticky note, scribble it down, and slap it on the front desk.
And suddenly you are paying tens of thousands of dollars a month in these criminal subscription fees for software that no one is actually using, while the real data lives on a dry erase whiteboard.
Yeah, you end up using maybe 10% of the software's capability while absorbing 100% of the cost and all of the friction. The industry handed these operators the entirely wrong tools, charged them a premium, then basically blamed them when the operational chaos continued.
So what does this all mean for the actual business? Because when you link these first 3 systemic failures together, the compliance, the staffing, the tech, a really dark picture emerges.
It's a perfect storm.
You have an administrator who spent their morning fighting an overly complex hospital software system while simultaneously covering a vacant shift because of a 5 a.m. call-out, while dreading a surprise state compliance audit.
By 2:00 p.m., that administrator has absolutely zero bandwidth left.
None. And the people who feel the impact of that exhaustion first are the families.
Absolutely. Family dynamics in this space are incredibly delicate. I mean, when someone moves a parent into a skilled nursing facility or an RCFE, they are handing over the care of the most precious person in their life to strangers.
Yeah.
Naturally, that generates an enormous amount of baseline anxiety and guilt.
And the only antidote to that anxiety is consistent communication. But if the administrator is drowning in operational fires, communication is the very first thing that gets dropped.
Exactly, the mechanism. Think about it. A daughter calls at 2:30 p.m. to check on her father who had a minor fall the day before.
Okay.
The administrator is stuck on hold with the staffing agency and lets the call go to voicemail. The daughter waits. 2 hours pass. The anxiety starts to ferment. She calls back. She gets a rushed caregiver who doesn't know the father's status. And suddenly, that anxiety curdles into anger.
The sources make a profound point here, too. We usually think of proactive family communication, sending a quick text saying, Dad had a great physical therapy session, his vitals are perfect. We just think of that as good customer service.
Right.
But the insight here is that communication is actually the facility's strongest liability protection.
This cannot be overstated. When families feel ignored or kept in the dark, they do not just leave bad reviews online.
What do they do?
They escalate. They call the state regulatory boards. They file formal grievances.
Yeah.
A massive percentage of those terrifying business-ending state audits we talked about earlier, they are triggered directly by complaints from angry families.
Wow.
Complaints that could have been entirely neutralized with a 2-minute proactive phone call.
But the administrator didn't have 2 minutes because they were digging through a paper binder trying to find yesterday's medication log.
Yep. It is a brutal, self-feeding cycle. The lack of operational time creates a communication vacuum. That vacuum triggers a state complaint. The complaint requires mountains of reactive compliance paperwork.
Which leaves even less time for communication.
Exactly. And while the operator is caught in that administrative tornado, fighting the state and soothing furious families, the actual foundation of their business is crumbling.
Because of massive, invisible revenue leaks.
Yes. Let's explore how this money actually disappears, because the margins in senior care are famously razor-thin to begin with.
Right. And we aren't just talking about the obvious loss of having an empty bed in the facility.
No, the real financial killers are the things happening right under the operator's nose that they simply cannot see.
Okay, think about the 5 a.m. scramble again. A caregiver is rushing to cover double the workload. They assist a resident who has had a recent decline in mobility.
Okay, common scenario.
Now, this resident used to need one person to help them transfer from the bed to the wheelchair. But today, they need a 2-person physical assist.
Which is much harder.
Exactly. The caregiver does the extra physically demanding work, but because they are rushed, and because the hospital software is too complicated, they never actually log that change in the system.
And there is the leak, right there. The facility just provided a higher, more expensive tier of care, but because the data didn't make it to the billing department, the resident's family only gets invoiced for the baseline care level.
Oh, man.
The facility absorbs the cost of the labor, but misses out on hundreds of dollars in rightful revenue.
Or take a skilled nursing facility dealing with Medicare. The nursing staff provides vital, skilled wound care. But the documentation is rushed, and they fail to code the exact functional limitation required by CMS to trigger the reimbursement.
Which means the facility essentially performs highly specialized, expensive medical care entirely for free.
Exactly. And it happens constantly. You have untracked private pay deposits. You have invoices that just sit on a desk for 90 days because the person responsible for billing is busy passing out lunch trays to cover a staffing hole.
Most facility owners have absolutely no concept of how much cash is evaporating from their balance sheets every single month.
And capturing that lost revenue getting paid for the work your staff is already actively doing could add thousands of dollars a month to the bottom line without needing to bring in a single new resident.
But you can't plug a leak if you don't know it's there.
Right. And you will never see the leak if your operational data is fragmented across text messages, sticky notes, and, bloated software systems.
It requires a total paradigm shift, moving from reactive chaos to proactive systems.
So, stepping back and looking at everything we've unpacked today, we are looking at a multi-front war.
We really are.
You have operators, and the vast majority of them are genuinely good people who entered this incredibly difficult field because they want to care for the vulnerable. But they are being crushed. They're terrified of one missing signature shutting them down. They wake up to 5 a.m. staffing nightmares. They pay extortionate fees for legacy software that makes their staff's lives harder. They battle the anxiety of families because their communication tools are broken.
And they do it all while watching their profit margins bleed out through invisible administrative leaks.
It's exhausting just talking about it.
It raises an important question, though. Honestly, it's a pretty sobering one. As a society, we place enormous demands on these facilities. We expect them to deliver deep, empathetic, highly personalized care to our parents and grandparents.
Of course we do.
We want caregivers to hold their hands, to listen to their memories, to treat them with profound dignity in their final years.
Yeah.
But look at the reality of the ecosystem we've just discussed. If the system is designed so that the people running these homes have to spend 90% of their daily energy fighting broken administration, panicking over missing staff, battling outdated technology, and defending themselves against regulatory audits, how much humanity is actually left to give to the residents?
Wow. That's a heavy thought to leave off on, but an important one. A huge thank you to Francis San Diego and the Facility Hacker Sources for pulling back the curtain on this hidden world for us. For everyone listening, keep questioning the systems around you, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.